Today we're going to be talking about resale versus new launch and which should you buy. Alright, so hi everyone, this is Mr. Joshua Tan and welcome back to my channel. So without further ado, if you have some money today, would you rather choose to buy a resale condo or a new launch? So today, if your goal is to make money, by the end of this video, you would hopefully be able to make a better informed decision by understanding the ins and the outs of resale versus new launch. So this video is going to be broken down into three main parts. First is the cash flow, where we address whether can you hold it comfortably. Is the cash flow management what you want? Secondly, we'll talk about project selection, where we go through what are you actually really buying. Last but not least, we'll go through profitability, where we learn and understand which one actually makes you more money. Alright, so first up, cash flow. How is your cash flow going to be like over the duration of your holding period when you want to enter and exit the property? Here is resale versus new launch. When it comes to resale, there's a full monthly mortgage payment that starts immediately. Whereas on the new launch side is progressive payment. So if let's say your full money installment for resale is actually 5,000 to 6,000, for new launch you would actually pay only just a couple $100 if you enter early at the start, and then slowly adding up progressively to 1,000 plus, 2,000 plus, 3,000 plus as the property gets completed more and more. So that's one main difference. What benefit does this have? For example, say you want to enter and exit in a period of 4 years. So for these 4 years, for example, a resale cash flow can look like this, adding up to about a total of $100 over $1,000. Whereas on the new launch, it can add up to something like this, adding up to around $100 over $1,000. Thus, progressive payment allows you to have a cash savings upfront during these first few years of the holding of your property. However, because resale is already a completed property, you can already start to rent it out for rental income. While on the BUC, building under construction, which is also known as the new launch side of things, you cannot rent out for rental income because the building is simply not ready. So resale, full mortgage payment; new launch, progressive payment. Resale can rent out immediately for rental income, whereas new launch cannot. But new launch gives you progressive payment, meaning to say that you pay lesser cash upfront. As a result of this lesser cash upfront, oftentimes you can see that if you can buy a $2 million resale, you can already buy a $2.5 million new launch. Now the difference is of course your financing, whether can your loan cover a $2.5 million property as opposed to a $2 million property, amongst other factors to assess as well. This also means that there is more leverage for you when you buy a $2.5 million property compared to a $2 million property, because any 10% growth in the market on a $2 million property is a gain of $200,000, but a 10% growth on a $2.5 million property is $250,000. Now next will be your interest rates. Which will interest rates affect more if you buy a resale or new launch? Now interest rates, if you buy a resale, this is the difference in per month. If the interest rates were to change from 1.5% to 2% and 2.5%. Whereas on the new launch, this is how the monthly mortgage payments would change estimatedly if interest rates were to change from 1.5% to 2% and 2.5%. In a way, you can say that resale is more sensitive to interest rates fluctuation, whereas the resale, because of its progressive payment, once again, allows you to ride out and mitigate the risk of interest rates fluctuation. Now, there are a lot more to cover, but for the sake of this video, so that we can move to the second pointer, I'm just going to share on one last pointer under this part 1 of cash flow section, and that is when you take on a loan for resale versus new launch. Resale, you can take on floating rate or fixed rate, whereas on the new launch, you can only take on floating rate. What does this mean? That means if today, let's say floating were to be 2% and fixed rates were to be 1.5%. For resale, you can choose to take floating 2%, whereby if interest rates go up and down, you follow and float accordingly, simplistically explaining it. Or you can take a fixed rate for, let's say, a loan package, for let's say a 2-year loan package, whereby these 2 years you hedge yourself at 1.5%. On the other hand, for new launch, you have no choice of 1.5% fixed rates. You can only choose the 2% floating rate. If interest rates go up, you follow up. Interest rates go down, you follow down. So purely from a cash flow perspective, it can be very different for resale and a new launch. Now, number 2, project selection. So in this section, we will uncover what are you actually buying. Now, when you buy a resale, you already have the past transaction records. You already know how much people are making, how much they profit, what's the annualized gains. But for a new launch, you don't have. So when you buy into that particular project in the resale market, you can have a good estimation of how that project, because of how that project is accepted by the market sentiments today, it can be expected also to perform in a similar like manner going forward. But for the new launch, you don't have any such data. In fact, if you get an early ballot number, you can also be choosing a stack that does not work out in your favor. So it depends. This being said, if you make a right selection, there are new launches that make a whole lot of money over the resale counterparts. Now, I'm not saying one is better over the other, and when my clients meet me for a proper consultation, we'll usually go in a customized manner based on circumstance to see if resale or new launch is more suitable. Yet, new launch has its vicinity projects, peripheral projects around that new launch project that can give you market data on how the buyers are accepting in that region, and also comparing across regions. There are many ways to compare. Can also be assessed with other factors, not just transaction figures. Is it a barren planned land area or not? Because the last thing you want to do is to buy into an area that cannot do anything for you. When you buy an area that seemingly have a next transformation, doesn't mean that you sure make money. I wish it's as simple as checklist. Oh, all meet, got transformation, got good profit potential, nearby property make money, then you can choose that property for a very good investment. I wish it were to be that simple. It also relies on experience. Now for resale, you also have the certainty of TOP, whereas for new launch, you don't know whether it will TOP. Of course, we know on paper they have to TOP lah. For example, they said by 2030, usually developers may try and meet TOP before 2030. However, what if they dig and a bomb appears, right? And then the whole project delays. Or in the market, you probably heard of cases whereby some project can have half of the project TOP first, then the other half TOP later. So it really depends. But generally in Singapore, when you buy a new launch, it's quite safe to say that when you buy, the developer is committed to build finish and it will become a fully built property. Not like some other countries where you buy and then that property may be left hanging halfway developed in that area. So resale is already completed, already TOP. You can inspect and view the actual unit. For new launch, you can only select through the site plan, floor plan, show flat. Which brings us to our part 3, and that is profitability. Which one actually makes more money, resale or new launch? You want to fundamentally choose a strong project. And today we are not talking just about good location, but good supported location. Suffice to say, if you want to find out how to craft this detailed plan for your own property needs and how to shop and choose a unit that best suits your situation, you can reach out to me in my WhatsApp here. I'll put it below here. And if this content has been helpful, don't forget to give a like and subscribe. Once again, this is Mr. Joshua Tan, and I'll see you around.